Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking ARs versus MCXs. Two very similar platforms and actually two that I've got. So today I'm actually going to go through two options that I have. You know, if you're out there and you're thinking, should I get an AR kind of M4, you know, Mark 18, that kind of base? Or should you go for something more like this, which is the MCX Spear LT? Then hopefully this video will kind of help you. I'm going to go through similarities that they have, some differences they have, pros and cons, and kind of what I think they're kind of good for, bad for. They are very similar, I would say, in terms of, that's probably why you're considering one or the other. Just as a disclaimer, this is Airsoft. None of these are real. And so just make sure everyone is aware of that. However, I do think this probably could play into real as well. You know, it's Airsoft content and these are Airsoft replicas, but it's going to have some crossover with the real still world. Okay, so the two that I'm going to compare today are two of my custom builds. This is a MWS based Guns Modify Mark 18, actually with this Geisley rail on it. So this is your shorter kind of 9-inch barreled AR platform, very standard generally. You've got some add-ons that I've put onto this, like this bad lever here, which is basically allowing me to do a bolt release from this side, but not ambidextrous. You've got kind of single controls on both sides. Obviously, it's got an M-LOK rail, which a lot of Mark 18s don't. But other than that, it is a pretty standard AR to use as a comparison. And then we have another one of mine, which is the APFG Spear LT. And this is the 11.5 inch. They do a 9-inch, same length as that. And they go all the way up to I think it's a 21-inch or a 16-inch maybe for this one. Similar with that, you know, you can go up to your kind of M16 length, so a 16-inch barrel. You could go up to your DMRs if you really needed to on an AR-based platform. So there's going to be variations in terms of the lengths, but we're going to kind of go over just the basics because, you know, a longer MCX and a longer AR, they're going to be comparable. This 11.5 inch to that 9-inch isn't exactly, but it's going to be very, very comparable. Okay, so similarities. Both of these platforms do work with kind of your M4 AR style magazines. Now, these can be varying depending on which model that you have. This is an APFG, which means that this is running on your VFC-based magazines, so they are not the same as a MWS mag. They work differently. They've got kind of different locations for the valves, for the feed lips, etc. So this will work on this APFG Spear LT. It'll also work on any of the kind of VFC based platforms. So if you have a VFC AR, you could take this and you could put it in this. If you have a toxicant if you have a toxicant MCX, for instance, those run off these, which are the MWS platformed magazines. So magazines wise, you know, that's a big similarity. It's going to depend on the model you have, but generally they're both running on your 5.56 size AR mag. So kind of with that, it's a similarity. So I don't think that's going to make much difference. If you've got already an AR, an MWS, that may play into it. If you have already a VFC, that may play into it. Both of these are pretty high performance. So you've got for Airsoft, good length barrels in these. This is not your SMG PDW. This is a, I don't know the exact length on this, but you're looking at like 300 and something millimeter barrel. So the range on this is going to be pretty good. The consistency on it, they're gas blowbacks, both of these, but they're going to be very similar. You know, like the amount of air it's putting out, the FPS capacity that they're putting out, that again is not going to vary massively, and it's not going to base itself on the platform. It's more going to base itself on the internals and kind of what nozzle you're running, what inner barrel you're running, the hop-up chamber and the hop-up bucking. Those do again vary on these, but in terms of the performance, they're going to be very similar again. What else? So the other thing is that they both can be customized pretty heavily. I mean, you can see here, I've done kind of my sight on here. They both have the Picatinny rail on the upper side. They both have a centrally located magazine insert area, magwell. So you're going to be putting it in there. Very, very similar controls. Like you have, if you look at these two controls here, like it is almost identical. You know, you've got a 3-position fire selector, which is going safe, semi, and auto. So what I really liked about the MCX, or why I ended up getting one, is because I was so familiar with the AR platform, as I'm sure a lot of people are, because that is kind of the recognizable. If you're thinking of an assault rifle, if you're thinking of anything like that, the AR-15 platform is going to be one that pops in your head straight away. And so having the ability to just basically plug and play and have the controls like this, I think that's really good. And it's going to be very similar reload. The bolt release again is almost the same. The mag release again is almost the same. You know, you've got some small variations on this, but with me, for the MCX Spear, which is the kind of more updated version, you've got the Virtus, which is a little bit different. But with this one, I actually really like kind of the mag release, and I like having this kind of bolt release right here, and they are kind of a little bit more set in. You've kind of got the dual area here, bolt release, which you don't really have on this one. It's hard to show because I've actually got a bad lever attached to it, but as you can see there, that lower part of the bolt release does not have anything on it, whereas this one does have that little kind of touch panel that's there. So I don't know, guys, sorry, the other thing to mention is that there is no mag release on that side because it's not ambidextrous. There is one here, just as there is one on this one. So there's a lot of similarities in terms of the actual function and the body of them. And they're going to be very customizable aftermarket wise in exactly the same way. You know, you're going to be able to put the same sights on it because they're going to go on Picatinny rails, the same attachments generally, because you've got the option for M-LOK with both of them. Really, the Spear LT is coming in M-LOK. It's not going to be coming in your Picatinny rail, which is an older kind of format, I would say. Some people really like that. I actually love it on my other Mark 18, but generally I will go for M-LOK. It's a lot more lightweight. It's a lot kind of neater and more compact. So that is kind of a similar thing where you're going to have the same amount of customization that you can have. There are also quite a lot of external add-on parts that are going to work with both of them. You know, it's going to be the same with most kind of most primary platforms in Airsoft with the replicas. A lot of the sights are going to work the same. Like there is that crossover for sure. It's not like you just buy a replica and it's a completely random platform. You're either going to have your key mod, your M-LOK, or your Picatinny. It's very rare to have anything else other than that. So that's probably generally the similarities. They're both going to take 14mm counterclockwise threads on these ones, which is going to be the same for most of them. So you can attach your flash hiders. You could also get suppressors. All of those different options are going to be the same. You can run the foregrips underneath them because they both have rails on the bottom. You can switch out the pistol grips because they're the same in that way. Yeah, so I would say there's a lot of similarities with these two. Differences. So aftermarket support, right now the AR kind of dominates that. Whether that is, you know, it's been around for a very long time, the AR platform, the AR-15 and different variants, the M4, etc. So there are a huge amount of parts out there. I was at SHOT Show a few weeks ago and the amount of AR platform firearms that I saw was insane. Like far in a way dwarfed absolutely everything else. This is a lot newer, especially the actual SIG Spear, which is kind of this version. It doesn't have as big a handrail. It's got a lot of similarities to the Virtus other than that, but it is a newer platform. So when you're looking at things like the bolt, for instance, you can probably tell here this is a Picatinny stock that can fold. So it does not in the same way have the buffer tube, the buffer and the spring that this has. So this internally actually has a spring inside here, and it has a small weight that reciprocates. When the bolt comes back, it pushes the spring and compresses it and then pushes that back in. This bolt in here is almost just on two runners with a spring that only kind of comes back this far. So the actual bolt itself in Airsoft, you can get so many different kind of aftermarket additions, changes, etc. to that kind of style. This is going to be far, far less. So the amount of aftermarket internals and changes, you know, whether it's a fire selector or a mag release that works with certain kinds of ARs, that's going to be there a lot more. I think that will change, and there's going to be more and more stuff for these as they come out, but there's just a lot less of these around. So therefore the aftermarket kind of market, the market for aftermarket parts is not been there in the same way. So as I mentioned before, the stock is probably a big one. Now, some people really like Picatinny stocks. I have to say I like them just because it's basically kind of like a blank canvas. I don't have to have that size stock tube and only be able to select kind of what sliding piece that I can have on it. You can get folding stock tubes. They again are rare, especially in Airsoft, and they are a lot more fiddly, whereas this is just a Picatinny rail on the back here, similar to how this is on here, and I can just attach any stock. So I've had this stock, I've had these format of stocks because I can just attach a regular buffer tube. I can have things that fold, I can have things that retract. You know, like here I've got two grooves where actually I could put a stock where it just has two actual supports effectively that pull back. So there is a lot more adaptability with the stock itself. The other thing is that when you do this, you can make it a lot smaller. Like that is actually a lot more compact. I'm probably never going to shoot it like that, but if I'm packing it up, if I'm taking it places, then this is just a lot easier to pack away into a bag or to carry around on my back, etc. This thing is only going to, the AR platform is only going to go from here, closed, to there. And so that is the only adjustability that I have. So that's just a change. It's a difference between the two of them. The other thing I would say is in the Airsoft world, like this is going to take real steel everything because it's just a Picatinny rail. And so I buy real SIG stocks. That one actually isn't, but I can buy real SIG stocks and I can put them on there. I can do real steel kind of the actual stock piece itself, but in terms of a buffer tube, in terms of a spring, in terms of like the internals that are going to go into that stock, I have to kind of go down the Airsoft route because the spring's going to be too strong for an Airsoft bolt as opposed to that. Same with the buffer. You can use real buffers, actually, that's not true. But generally, you're going to need to be able to do anything real steel with this one. And with this one, you kind of have to go more down that kind of Airsoft route with some exceptions. Rail space. So this is the Spear LT, and you can see how much M-LOK I have. Like I've got M-LOK there. Like there's just so many slots on this, and it's going to depend the length because the handrail is going to be longer for something that is, you know, a longer barrel, where it's going to be shorter for others. This has got a good amount of rail space on it, but it's a lot smaller handrail. And again, it's going to depend what kind of, you know, do you have Picatinny? Do you have key mod? Do you have anything like that? But as you can see, this is more of an egg shape in terms of the shape. This is more of an oval. There, you can see that there. So I'd say this is going to have the ability to have more on there in terms of just if you're doing that customization. Ergonomically as well, I really like this. You can change these out probably a lot more. Again, that aftermarket part space. This is really going to be the handrail you have, and the main reason for that is because this is a monolithic upper rail. So this rail here goes all the way to that point. Now it's going to give you more stability because this entire piece is part of the upper. So this piece here is going to slide onto it, but this piece really needs to fit into that space. Whereas when you look at it on this one, it basically just needs to meet the barrel and attach at that one point. So something else to bear in mind is you're going to have more space, but it's going to be, again, less kind of customizable at the moment. I'm sure a lot of companies are going to be coming out with the dimensions of this that will fit onto it. Another thing that is different is the hop-up adjustment. So with this, you're going to be adjusting from inside the actual bolt. So I need to just retract that bolt, and inside there is the adjustment for the hop-up. With this one, I have this piece here, which I am turning to adjust the hop up. Now, I'm not sure which one I prefer. I think this is easier to access. However, I do think it's a little bit of annoying. You know, I probably would prefer this one, to be honest, just because it's easier to access. I can kind of turn it and shoot. That one I have to retract the bolt every time, or I have to open up the upper and the lower to kind of figure out what's going on. So that's just another difference that that you kind of are going to have. That's probably most of the differences. I'm trying to think. There's probably something that I've missed, which is quite major. If I have, as always, put it in the comments below. Ambidextrous controls, that's the other thing, which I mentioned earlier. But this, you can get the AR platforms with ambidextrous controls. You can buy aftermarket to get it. However, if you're buying most ARs in Airsoft, they're not going to have ambidextrous out of the box. The Spear LT and the MCX platforms do have that. That's bolt release and fire selector, not just one or the other. So that is, again, something that's a difference. It's a change. Any other things? So the bolt travel is another change. The bolt on that, as I said, is going full travel all the way back to where the stock is there in that stock tube. This one is obviously going back a lot shorter. And so what I would say is that that does have an effect, both in terms of the snappiness of it. The return on the Spear LT is a lot faster because it's going a smaller distance. The travel's not as far. However, I would say that probably also affects the recoil. So I don't notice a massive difference in these two, but you are getting just a mass that is moving a lot smaller space. So it's a snappier, lighter recoil. This thing is going back further, so the rate of fire is not as high. It's a little bit more cumbersome, although it's not at all. Like, I'll quickly give you guys an idea of what this is doing here. So that's that firing. And again, I've kind of tricked this up so that it's a pretty great return. Oh, and I've just ungassed that. Let's see if I can just... So as you can see, they're fairly similar. And the recoil is actually fairly similar on these. But in general, I would say that's what you're going to be looking at. So pros and cons. I think the pros of the AR platform are you've got tons of that aftermarket support, loads of different options internally, externally. You know, you're going to find it hard for the Spear LT or the MCX platform to beat that. It probably will get to that level eventually if that is continually adopted like it is looking like it's going to be at the moment, with the forces in the US starting to use the XM7. That's just another variant of this Spear LT. The LT seems to be very popular. It's an expensive firearm. The other thing is that SIG make the Spear LT, so the actual manufacturers of the AR platform, you've got tons of different aftermarket manufacturers, whether that is Airsoft. I mean, Airsoft's going to be different, but real steel wise, if you're looking at real steel parts to put on here, you have one manufacturer, Sig Sauer, that's making that. With this, you have so many different versions of this made by small companies, large companies, everything in between. So that is going to mean that there's just a lot more stuff to put on there. The fire controls, everyone's used to them, but that's not really a pro because it's the same. That did set the standard for it, but the Spear LT has kind of copied that, and therefore it's similar. There's a lot of different configurations of this. You know, you've got your CQB versions, your DMRs, you've got conversions that let them fire smaller calibers, and that is not so much like with the Spear LT. There's kind of one version at each length with that. Same, the MCX, I keep saying Spear LT, the MCX, whether it's the Virtus or the Spear LT or the XM7, there's different lengths, but there's not as many different varieties that you're going to find. There's also Probably more different variants of magazines that are going to work. Really, there's a lot less of the MCXs out there, so there's only going to be a certain, like the VFCs are going to work and the MWS is going to work. You're not yet going to have like the Simon mags or other different kind of variations yet, because they don't have these platforms out. But again, it's really not as much of an issue in Airsoft, but that's again something just to bear in mind. Cons of this, I think, is that buffer tube limitation. You know, you haven't got quite the same ability to put everything real steel on this at the moment. It's definitely less compact, again, with that buffer tube, unless you get like pretty out there and you have a folding buffer tube. I have to say I don't use it on the Spear LT MCX as much as I thought I would, but it's great to have that as an option. And the ambidextrous features are not standard generally on these. You can get them, you can put them in aftermarket. So that's the thing. MCX platform, pros, it is very compact when you're putting it in, and it's modular. Like you can put different stocks on it, etc. You can kind of have it shorter, longer. You can, you know, do every kind of variations of the rear of it that you kind of want. It's compatible with those stocks that are real steel as well. Again, you don't need them for Airsoft, but if you want to do that, I think it's a great thing that is there. The ambidextrous controls are great. I love the bolt release on this. I just really, really like it. If I lock this here, let me just do this quickly for you. So that is the bolt there, and if I literally just touch this here, that's just throwing that bolt forward. And it's fine to do it with this, but on a reload, I'll find that if I'm, you know, firing, bang, I've got the reload, I have another mag in there, just flicking that with the finger is so much easier, instead of firing, doing this, doing that, and then having to push this, which I kind of have to do on most of the stock ARs. So I like that ambidextrous control. I don't really use the mag release on here, but again, you have that option to do that if you want to. And if you're a left-handed shooter, of course, ambidextrous is great, as it is, you know, if you're right-handed, generally all of these ARs, etc., are set up for right-handed. If you have ambidextrous, you know, you're catering to everyone, and I don't think there's many downsides to it. The more space on the rail, I like that a lot. The monolithic rail does kind of give you a little bit of that inhibit, you know, like different customization, but I absolutely love this rail, I have to say, and it is going to make it more stable. Like if I'm mounting sights on this, or kind of like things onto the front, like a PEC unit, etc., having this being more solid, I think is a real advantage. And so that's something I prefer on this. I think that's a pro. Snappier bolt response. I like having that snappier bolt response. I have to say with this version, like I like the trigger on the APFG MCXs more than I like the trigger on the Tokyo Maruis out of the box. This is technically a Guns Modify, so the trigger on this is a lot better. And I actually have in this one I've got a Toxicant tuned trigger, so you can see there's just no movement in it. But that is not generally, if you're looking at your MWS based AR, that's not what it's going to come like. This is the nicer kind of clack trigger that I really like. Magazines wise, they're going to be a similar price. It's just something I didn't mention. I actually think the VFC mags are really good. Like I've heard a lot of people have dropped these. They haven't had issues. They're really well built. I like these, the Guns Modify Evos. They're also really good. They're going to be a similar cost, but I do think probably mag wise, if you're looking at these specific ones, the VFC mag is going to win that battle, but not by much. Like they're both really good mags. So the snappier bolt response and the faster kind of potential rate of fire, unless you've tuned it like this. I have not changed anything on the bolt in this, so that's stock out of the box how it's performing. Problems are heavier generally. Like this thing does weigh more. I think obviously if you've got a smaller version, if I had the 9-inch, it'd probably be comparable. So just from picking both of these up, the 11.5 and that 9, it is like the actual size of them. If I show you here, like you can see that inch and a half of the barrel length. But the weight on them this is heavier for sure than that is, even though I've got a PEC unit on this. and I've got some more kind of heavier foregrip. It's definitely a lighter gun, and I think you can get the ARs pretty light. Fewer aftermarket parts obviously is not great, and the recoil not being as strong. You know, I'd love it if it was faster rate of fire, really compact like this, faster, like snappier with a bigger recoil. Obviously that's not really possible, but that's just something to bear in mind if recoil is kind of more important for you. Okay, so final thoughts. Which one should you choose? If it's a rifle you want with kind of endless customization, you know what you're getting, you know, there's tons of stuff out there. It's going to fit most roles. You know, like if you're playing any kind of role, you'll see it in an airsoft site. Nearly everyone has one of these. Even if they're not playing with it that day, they'll have one of these in their collection. This, I would say, is a little bit rarer at the moment. I definitely do not see that many of these around, and I do think a lot of people, well, I know that when I've played with it, a lot of people come up to me and they say, hey, that's really cool, can I try it, can I hold it? So that will change over time, but that is going to be something that's it. So if you want something that's more compact, a bit different, then that might be one you go with. So I also want to know now, guys, which do you prefer? Would you, or are you going to pick one of these, which is the AR-based platform, whether it's like this or another variant, or would you pick this, the MCX platform, whether it's this or another variant? You have to ship this into the country as of right now. There are going to be versions that are coming out which you can get in the US a lot easier, but this is something you're going to have to work to get a lot more or pay a lot of shipping. You can get so many different variations of this. So I'd love to know that. If you guys are interested or want to purchase something, I'd really appreciate you go to the link down below in the description. I have like a referral link where if you go to eVike and you pay for stuff and you use my link, it really benefits me and the channel. And so if you want to get one of these or some of these attachments, please just go through there. I'll try and list what I have on these. If you have any questions, as always, put it in the comments below. And if you'd like to become a member of the channel, I would absolutely love that. I think it's either $2.99 a month or $4.99 a month. I've got giveaways, exclusive member content, live Discord channel that's there. So if that's something you're interested in, please do consider it, and I'd really like you to do that. And if you could leave a comment, like, subscribe, that'd be awesome as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope this has been of value. Have a great day wherever you are, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.